Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Table Talks. This is the podcast where we'll be talking to different students, faculty, staff, and opportunities here at IC, brought to you by The Ithacan. You can check out more of our podcasts from wherever you're listening or by visiting theithacan.org. Now, today we have Daniel Gwirtzman. How are you doing today, Daniel?
I'm great, thank you.
Awesome. So do you mind telling the viewers a little bit about what you do here at IC?
So I'm starting a 7th year as a newly promoted Associate Professor of Dance in our exciting Department of Theater and Dance Performance within the School of Music, Theater and Dance.
Wow, that's awesome. So could you tell us a little bit about what you teach or what your role specifically is?
Yeah, so I work both in the studio and in the classroom. I teach practical and theoretical courses. This term I'm teaching jazz, I'm teaching modern, those are technique classes. Also teaching improvisation, which is such a great course that's open college-wide to really become comfortable in one's skin and learn how one can express oneself through movement. And then a theoretical course is dance and film, which is being held in Hill and has a lot of Park students, but also students from all over the campus. And so that's more of a traditional lecture discussion course. I also choreograph for the musicals. We have dance concerts every other year. And I also teach courses in learning how to create dance film and teach composition in the spring where students will create their own dances and learn the skills that enable that to happen.
That's awesome. Could you tell us a little bit about how you got started in the dance industry?
Oh, gosh. Well, I got started before it was an industry, it was just a boy loving to dance. So that was part of my life from the moment that I was born. Just loved to dance. My mom would comment on how much I was dancing as I was setting the table, and always just in movement. So that desire expressed itself before I gained the technique and the training. But I did know early on that my mom likes to say I was in 4th grade when I told her I was going to be a dancer. So while I don't remember that exact moment, I definitely know that my life was always infused with that joy. It wasn't until I went to college, though, that I really made that decision to take a pre-professional track for the training. That was at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, and received a lot of incredible training there. And then after that, joined a professional company and started touring and working as a professional dancer.
Wow. So what shows have you been on specifically?
So the work that I did, so the degree that I obtained from the University of Michigan was a BFA in dance. It was not with a focus on musical theater, although I did that work. I was involved in productions of Cabaret in Chicago while a student there at that time. So my career has been focused in concert dance. And I danced with Garth Fagan's company. Garth Fagan choreographed The Lion King, and with another modern dance company, Mark Morris Dance Group. So I toured as a dancer with these, performing internationally and nationally as a dancer within different choreographers' repertory. Not names that would be necessarily, titles of shows that would be known to viewers and listeners. But since coming to Ithaca and working in this wonderful theater department, I've had the chance to choreograph Rent and choreograph Newsies, and really love being able to bring concert dance and a background more in pure dance into the musical theater arena.
Wow, that is awesome. Do you have like a favorite story that happened throughout those years?
A story as a dancer?
Yes.
Oh, gosh. Well, I think maybe just to illuminate how exciting it is to live life as a dancer, and I can see as I'm talking, if a certain story comes to mind, or if you have a curiosity about something, please let me know. It is a fulfilling life. It certainly has its challenges because, like the athletes that dancers are, we work with a lot of repetition and strenuous situations. The freedom, though, to devote one's life to that practice is really a joyful one. I like to say just to get out of bed in the morning is the beginning of a great day, and not taking that for granted. Dancers can have setbacks, as athletes do, with injuries. And so I've been thankful to have had a continuous career where I have been performing since these years I just mentioned without pause. And it just becomes gratifying, to continue to deepen one's understanding of craft and artistry. And that's what we all have to look forward to in our respective careers, is that there are deepenings that happen over time. as a dancer, there isn't a guarantee that you'll be able to stay in the game and continue to physically do that as you learn more about the craft and learn more about how you can interpret roles. So, I think rather than just one specific story, I've been fortunate to have a lot of wonderful opportunities to see the world and travel through my art. That's something that, many careers bring to us, and that's been eye-opening. So I guess one story would just be to share an invitation to be in Brazil for 2 months, specifically in Bahia, the state of Bahia, which has the city of Salvador de Bahia. It was formerly the capital of Brazil, a city of 2 million people. Having an opportunity to not just visit, but be working and become part of a community in a place that's so foreign to growing up, here in the northeast of this country. That's a rather general story, but was just very transformative and meaningful.
Yeah, of course. And you mentioned that you were doing much travel for dance. I also noticed that when I was doing research for you, that you also do a lot of travel for film. So I just wanted to ask a little bit about that experience too. And I guess a question I wanted to ask for you is, when you're deciding to tell a story, how do you choose what medium you want to tell it in, whether that be dance, film, or something else?
Oh, that's a great question. I think it's interesting to consider whether something would be expressed as a film or a dance. They are very different things, while of course closely related. What's great about producing a film is that you're making something that will be permanent versus the impermanence of a performance. And while we can capture and record a documentation of a performance, that's a separate thing. And so dance film lives in a place where it's not just documenting, but it's a new work of art that's being created specifically for the film medium. So what's great about it is you can share that more easily with people. The barriers are removed in terms of being able to communicate this story through film dance. In Brazil, I was able to do a lot of film work there, and meaningfully with students that were studying at a conservatory and with people of different ages. That's been a thread in the work that the company I direct in New York, which we haven't mentioned yet, but I am working as an artistic director of a nonprofit that's based in New York City. And the mission has always been to create meaningful, interactive opportunities for people to engage in dance. And so sometimes that's been inviting them into a performance process that would be realized on stage, and sometimes in a film process, as I recently had the chance to do last June when filming in France.
Wow, that's awesome. Could you tell a little bit more about the premiere that you guys had at Sinopolis and some of the screenings that you guys have had? How has that experience been, just having students and other people alike come and watch that film?
So just to contextualize, the film that you're mentioning is the film that I just said I had shot in France last year, called Framing Minerbe. And Minerbe is the name of a village. It's a small village that has a historic and large imprint. Artists have always flocked there because of its picturesque qualities, and the light in particular, which is renowned for being so clear. I had opened up a call to participants from the village and surrounding villages, and 16 people responded and said they wanted to be involved. So it was a highly collaborative project where the participants were helping to shape the direction of the film, the locations, the choreography, and that was extremely meaningful because instead of being a tourist, I'm actually living and working for a period of time in a community and getting to know these members. So after making the film, it premiered in France a year later, just this past June. Then it premiered in New York at the Dolby Screening Room, all very exciting events. And we've been able to continue the rolling out of the film through some screenings this fall in Johnson City, New York, in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and then, as you mentioned, at Cinemapolis. The Cinemapolis experience of all of them was so singularly memorable because 40 students showed up at the screening, and for a teacher to have that kind of support was just extremely rewarding. To be able to share what I do when I'm not in the studio or in the classroom, and what that work is, and the vulnerability of bringing that work and the excitement to share these other facets of myself as a practicing artist.
Yeah, of course. It's actually through your students that I was able to learn a lot more about you, because everyone was posting about it and talking about the screening. So that was how I was able to find out about you. I guess I also wanted to ask too, you mentioned how you have so many students who are looking up to you and doing research for your classes and stuff like that. So I also wanted to ask, what would you say to students who feel like artistically forced to go in one direction or the other, film or dance? What would you say to those students? And how do you bridge the gap between that?
Yeah, I think I'd like to open that up even more than film or dance, but just to whatever medium and even outside of the arts. Leave no stone unturned. Like that would really be the idea I'd want to impart. And it served me well, which is, follow your whims, follow your curiosities, follow your interests, and dream big. And then reality will present itself and without compromise, because structures become just that. So they're not limitations. They're just, okay, this is the budget, this is where we're going to shoot. So maybe a film, won't be as feasible, or maybe it will, and it's just going to happen. And, unleashing the creativity to realize it without all the elements that, a larger budget might provide. So I think in terms of honoring creativity, everyone has it. And it's just about giving permission to listen. Like, I think we can always decipher what those words are, like the writing on the wall that are inscribed in our heart or somewhere within us. And giving permission, like, why shouldn't you follow those desires? It's actually our idiosyncrasies and our quirks and our specific characteristics that ultimately have the most to bring to the world. We need a baseline of skills and techniques in whatever medium, we're working in. But those differences, those particular or peculiarities ultimately are what brings an individual voice. And it took me a while, to learn that. Often I was shying away from some of the things that came more naturally to me right away. I sort of either took them for granted or didn't give them enough value. And I think really leaning into those specific, viewpoints, perspectives, ideas, are what bring that texture that then becomes really exciting for others to partake in.
Yeah, of course. And throughout your experience, how would you say your creative vision has changed throughout the years?
I think it's a continuum. I don't know if the vision has changed as much as it's just been a yellow brick road that just keeps, winding and meandering. And sometimes it brings you through a forest and sometimes you're in a clearing. And what does that mean? Not metaphorically. I think it means, again, like listening to the pulse and not being stuck in just retreading past things. I think it's easy to replicate things that have worked, and there may be a reason to do that, but what new thing am I adding to it? Or where am I asking questions that I don't know the answers to? And that excites me, endlessly as a choreographer. I am aware of the choreography I've made, and I try to, for example, just this term in Modern 3, which is a technique class, to create new choreography this term for the students so that we're embarking on something new together. And I've created a few new pieces. I created a dance at the beginning of the term called The Window, which is set to a movement of a Mozart piano sonata. And I'm currently working with the great song Ventura Highway by the band America. It was released in 1972, which the students have responded to so much. And I hadn't intended for it to develop into more of a full unit, but based on that reception and knowing how much fun they were having dancing to this great song, continuing to share more of the choreography and develop it specifically for them.
Wow, that is awesome. Now, I guess something else I also wanted to ask is, taking a look back into your career, is there anything that you wish you could have told yourself back then that you think would be helpful for viewers to know?
Well, I do know that nerves got the better of me a little bit in the early part of my career, specifically when I knew there were critics, say, from the New York Times and the House. And, I wasn't always pleased with the performances that I had put in because, again, I just was a little too aware of the reception and the fact that it seemed like the stakes were higher. When in truth, the stakes are always high as a performer, and at the same time, you want to just do justice to know what you do and what you know how to do. And so I think an older me would counsel the younger me, and similarly, to all students, to just really trust that you can do no wrong if you stay grounded and present, and to just be excited that there's an interest to see the work, which is another way of viewing a critic in the house. They're just one voice. They're going to have a viewpoint, but how great that they're there to bring exposure to the project. That's great for all the collaborators involved, and to not get ahead of oneself. And I think that, there were moments where I either, from a performance point of view, as I mentioned, got ahead of myself, or also as a producer, choreographer, maybe carried a little too much import to how the reception would be instead of just leaning all into making the best version of this. And then, once you release a work into the world, it's purposefully there for opinions and perspectives that are not your own. It's important to take the whole, to not just cherry pick and say, oh, okay, I agree with this, but that criticism. I think taking all of it, the good and the bad and the ugly on a spectrum, and then deciding, I could choose to take it or not, but at least to be open to receiving all of that feedback. So as I've aged, I really embraced that any point of view is information that I don't have myself. And that's what you do as an artist or as somebody who puts out work for the public sphere. That's what you do. And just, trust that vision, is supported, and, welcome all of the feedback that comes.
Yeah, of course. And if there are people who want to get to see more of your work, is there anything that is upcoming that you would like to talk about to publicize?
Sure. Well, I first want to just mention a site that's not upcoming but is available free of charge to see a lot of work, okay? That's called dancewithus.org. The website is easy to remember. It's dancewithus.org. And there's a trove, a library of both recorded dances from the theater and specifically dance films, as we've been talking about. This is a resource that the company was able to make during the pandemic with some leadership support from the Rockefeller Brothers Fund that enabled us to employ some Ithaca College alums, some at the time Ithaca College students, joining the dance company to produce this repertory that exists. So that would really be where I'd like to steer people towards. One thing I would want to add when you ask about upcoming events would be a screening that is being produced by students at Ithaca College. This is a culminating event of dance and film being offered this term. So on Wednesday, December 17th at 9 in the morning, it's during our final exam period, so it would only conflict if somebody had a final in that 7:30 to 10 slot, but we're opening up in Hill 107, where we meet. We're going to have a screening, and each of the students have worked on a collaborative film project. So we'll see 7 films, and they're each no longer than 5 minutes, so you'll get a lot in a short period of time. So we'd love to open that up and invite everybody in the IC community to come and support. These are films that have been realized fully by the students. The idea, the editing, the filming, the choreography, the performance, it's all being generated by the students, and it'll just be a great way to have something fun to look forward to during finals week.
Awesome. Do you have anything you would like to say to the viewers before the episode ends?
Well, if anybody's still tuned in, thank you for spending time with me and Tony. I would say, again, just in terms of following dreams, because really the reason that we're here having a conversation is simply that I haven't stopped following mine, is just, to really, again, trust your ideas and also realize that nobody can prevent you from realizing those dreams. Why would you listen to somebody if they were a naysayer and told you couldn't? It doesn't mean it'll be easy or straightforward, but if that belief is there and you want to see something through to fruition, I just welcome everybody unleashing these voices of cheerleaders, inside that are encouraging you. Hopefully there are enough other voices of support. Certainly your instructors and your peers can be that voice of support, but ultimately that permission to trust oneself would just be a final message to share.
Awesome. Well, everybody, please send a warm welcome to Daniel for joining us today on the podcast. And make sure to check out other Ithacan podcasts, and also have a happy Thanksgiving, everyone. See ya.